Muchísimas gracias, Señor Pastor Morillo, esteemed members of the Permanent Forum, member state representatives, representatives of other UN mechanisms, civil society partners, allies, and comrades. It is a pleasure to be speaking to you on this 5th occasion of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent as a representative and co-founder of the International Civil Society Working Group for the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. I want to structure my brief remarks by starting with gratitude, asserting some recommendations, and ending with gratitude. But I will start with grounding ourselves in this moment. It is no small feat that we are here in this space at this time. We did not get here by happenstance. We got here by intentionality and a vision that was carried forward from generation to generation, where those of us who are willing to pick up the baton to establish the Permanent Forum as a part of the decade for people of African descent, which at times felt like it started actually in 2020 after the uprisings from the murder of George Floyd. But still, we took up the baton to carry out this last leg of the race. I extend gratitude to two comrades, Permanent Forum member Michael McEachran and my other comrade, Sheldon Williams, because it was the three of us after a rather frantic last push in 2021, working with a coalition of civil society actors to get the resolution passed that established this mechanism. We understood that every ending is also a beginning and that the work didn't stop because the mechanism was formed. We determined that we needed to formalize our coalition in order to continue to try to build something useful for our advocacy efforts as Africans and people of African descent. That is how the ICSWG was formed. Next, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the small but mighty Secretariat team that holds things together. Niraj, Eli, and Cynthia. And I'm naming them because critiquing from afar is always easy. Most people in this room walked into a room. For example, if you're walking into a restaurant or walking to a dinner table, you walk in to a table that has already been set, the plates and silverware, wine glasses, all in place, the food soon to arrive, having been cooked in the kitchen, and we often never see nor acknowledge those who set the table, who prepare the food, and who will clean up afterward. And for that, I want to thank the Secretariat for their cooperation, their collaboration, their responsiveness and commitment demonstrated time and time again over these last 5 years. And I want to also acknowledge their work, absolutely. I want to acknowledge openly, because I believe in giving people their flowers while they are here to receive them, their willingness to work alongside the Civil Society Working Group and the leadership team of this working group to bring us to this moment. When civil society said we needed to talk about reparations, they made sure it was centered in this forum. When we lifted up immigration and issues concerning gender, women, and girls, we saw it reflected in the forum the next year. They designed the plenary sessions around feedback from the International Civil Society Working Group. The youth session this morning is an outgrowth of the inputs from this working group who said we needed to have youth representation in the Permanent Forum. In the Permanent Forum and also as speakers at these sessions. Last year in our advocacy talking points, we lifted up the need to have the Permanent Forum in a location with an actual majority of people of African descent. And on the first day of this forum, the president of the African Union Commission and my colleague sitting right next to me announced that the next Permanent Forum will take place in Addis Ababa. That is the power of our organizing, and that is the power of the strong relationships that we've been able to build with the Secretariat and with members who know what time it is. So for all of those things, I am grateful, but I also have some assertions to make. First, and some recommendations. So first, for civil society. 5 years on, the Permanent Forum is now the largest platform and mechanism serving people of African descent at the United Nations. The ICSWG had no philanthropic champion for this work, no massive infusion of funding. We had no government champion of this work, no government that significantly subsidized our meetings, surveys, consultations, research reports, town halls, side events, and all of the organizing that we have been doing in between these sessions. We did this work on the strength of the resources we had amongst ourselves, even when it was just on those Zoom calls, where before there were 300 people on the Zoom call, there were 15 and maybe 20. Because of this, I know what is possible. We must acknowledge that philanthropy will not fund our liberation. Governments for certain will not resource our liberation. And even as we demand what we believe is necessary to advance our agenda, we must demonstrate our commitment to what we can build together as a collective in order to effectively leverage all avenues of support for our agenda, because after all, this is our vision. This mechanism derives its legitimacy from the participation and engagement of civil society. That is my challenge as we recognize the significant benchmark of 5 years. I want to challenge us with a proverb, an African proverb. It says that the river doesn't stop flowing when it encounters rocks. It carves its way around them. In this time where resources have seemingly grown smaller, this is not the time to turn to those who didn't get us here to be responsible for taking us into the future, or to ask even more loudly for what was never really offered. Instead, we must turn inward and to each other and ask, what will we offer and commit for ourselves and for the collective, our time, talents, and treasures? That is the spirit of the International Civil Society Working Group as we move through this 5th year. And when we talk about self-determination, sovereignty, and moving a liberatory agenda, we must embody that. Second, the ICSWG asserts that this space derives its legitimacy from the ability of Africans and people of African descent to be able to freely, openly, and without reprisal engage in this forum. This ability must be held sacred if this is to remain a space where we can freely articulate our perspectives, our demands, and our experiences. Therefore, the International Civil Society Working Group recommends that the Permanent Forum adopt a clear and practical framework to prevent and address any intimidation, retaliation, and reprisals against participants who engage with the forum, particularly where such harm may come from state actors or actors linked to governments. The UN system already treats reprisals for cooperation with UN human rights mechanisms as a serious institutional concern, and the measures proposed here are not without precedent. The ICSWG has drafted a framework and presented to the Secretariat to initiate a process of consideration and eventual adoption. Because if we cannot speak freely and openly amongst ourselves, where else can we do so? Third, the ICSWG takes seriously the importance of youth inclusion in the forum. We are appreciative of the ways that the forum has platformed youth and has been responsive and has supported our youth subcommittee. And we echo the call of our young people for formal inclusion of youth representation in the actual modalities and structure of the Permanent Forum. And we will continue to push for this. If we know that we have gotten the baton from our generations prior, from our elders, from those who have carved the path before us, we must actually establish that same path for our young people to take our place. And we must lead by example. So we firmly assert that the inclusion of young people must be not just nominally and not just in platforms, but structurally in this body. And finally, because I know that my comrades out on this stage also have recommendations to offer, we will continue to advocate for increased transparency in the recommendations that are moved forward by the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent as a mechanism that is responsive to and accountable to civil society. It is important that we understand clearly what recommendations are being carried forward, why they are being carried forward, to whom and what entities they are being carried forward to, so that it can support our utilization of this space as we design coherent global strategies that advance our liberatory agenda. We will continue to push for that transparency and accountability of the Permanent Forum members. I want to close with some words of gratitude to the members of the Civil Society Working Group. This was not an easy journey. But we are here still, and we are energized. And in spite of the conditions that we are experiencing in our home countries, we know that this is a time of peril. The Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci, while he was in prison, he spoke about a time where there's a transitional period of immense instability, where established social, political, and economic norms collapse, but no new order has yet replaced them. It results in chaotic or morbid conditions, is what he wrote, and it's called an interregnum. He wrote that the old is dying and the new cannot be born. In this interregnum, morbid phenomena of the most varied kind come to pass. And we have seen some very morbid phenomena around the world. And so what does that mean for us? Some would translate his words with a quote that says, "The old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters." But I declare that though this may be the time of monsters, in this time of monsters, we can be heroes. And what does that mean? It means that we have to stand on the courage of our convictions on the things that we have built together, that we cannot be pushed back on our heels, that we cannot be afraid of what we must do going forward. There's a proverb that says, "Do not fear the forest because it is dense." We must go through. We must actually double down on our commitments. If we say that what we believe is possible, we actually have to demonstrate that we believe that it is possible. And so that means we must continue to build on these 5 years. We are claiming no easy victories, but we are encouraged by the wins that have been hard fought. And that is represented here with all of us in this room on this 5th Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. And it will be even more clear next year when we are on African soil for the 6th session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. And with that, I extend my last gratitude, and thank you very much.